Hello, church. Bob Myers here, sharing with you from Habakkuk 3 as we study through the minor prophets in the Old Testament. And chapter 3 is a transition in the book of Habakkuk. If you remember in chapter 1, we started the book with verse 2, O Lord, how long shall I cry, and thou wilt not hear? Even cry out unto thee of violence, and thou wilt not save. Habakkuk was saying, Lord, I've been praying. How long is it going to take? How long is it going to take? And he's some frustration there of not seeing God move in response to Habakkuk's prayer. And then we go through the chapter 1 and chapter 2, as Bob spoke of yesterday. He sees the prophecies that God's going to do, and God begins to answer and begins to show him what's going to happen. And in the last verse of chapter 2, but the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. Habakkuk moves from, Lord, how long is it going to be before you answer, to the Lord. He begins to hear God's answer. And at the end of chapter 2, the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. And then chapter 3, we have a psalm, a beautiful song that Habakkuk puts out, a poem that magnifies God, and he's extolling the virtues of God. And we see that Habakkuk is in a much better place now in relationship with God. It took a while to work through it, but he's in a much better place now. And I'm reminded of what Corrie ten Boom said one time. She said, if you look at the world, you'll be distressed. If you look within, you'll be depressed. If you look at God, you will be at rest. And in chapter 3, we see Habakkuk. He had looked at the world, and now he's looking at God, and he's at rest, and he's praising God, and extolling the virtues of God and what God's done, and rehearsing what God's done, and resting in the promises of God. And he gets to the point where we see those beautiful, beautiful verses in the end of the chapter, the great declaration of faith of Habakkuk as he rests in God. And he makes this statement, this beautiful, although the fig tree shall not blossom, neither shall fruit be in the vines, the labor of the olive shall fail, and the field shall yield no meat. The flock shall be cut off from the fold, and there shall be no herd in the stalls. That's a bleak situation. Here's where Habakkuk is, resting in God. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation. The circumstances, as Habakkuk looked out at the world, hadn't changed yet, but his focus on God had caused him to see it differently. He's resting in God, completely resting in God. I pray today as you go through this, and it might be good to read this in 2 or 3 different versions, because it is a song. The last chapter, it says, to the chief stringer on my stringed instruments, the last verse of this chapter. So it really is a song, and it's arranged in different ways in different versions. So it might be good to read it in 2 or 3 different versions to get a flavor of just the way that Habakkuk moves from questioning God, are you ever going to do anything, to resting in God and praising him for what he's done, resting in the assurance that he's going to continue to do it, no matter what the circumstances look on the outside. Be blessed today as you study chapter 3 of Habakkuk.